I'm 34, married to my husband Mark, 36, and I never imagined that the slow unraveling of my marriage would start with a phone call from my baby brother Josh. Josh is 25, the youngest in our family by a long stretch. He's always been a bit of a drifter, smart, funny, but never quite figured out what he wanted from life. He's bounced from job to job, relationship to relationship, always promising that the next thing would stick. We all love him, but none of us really trust him with anything serious. That sounds harsh, I know, but it's just who he is. Anyway, 2 months ago, Josh called me in the middle of the night, totally wrecked. He said his girlfriend kicked him out after a fight, and he had nowhere to go. I could hear him crying, not dramatic sobbing, more like quiet, desperate, ugly crying that sounded like it had been going on for hours before he even picked up the phone to call me. I didn't even think twice. I told him to pack a bag and come stay with us. Mark was surprised when I told him the next morning. Not upset, just quiet. He said it was fine, of course. That's the kind of man Mark is. Steady, reliable. If there's a fire, he grabs the extinguisher while everyone else is panicking. He doesn't make a big deal out of things, but you can always tell when he's uneasy, because he goes completely still, like he's trying to hold in all the noise. At first, everything was fine. Josh was polite, grateful, even helpful. He cooked dinner twice the first week, helped out in the yard, fixed our broken porch light without being asked. He was charming, even to Mark, who started warming up to him in a way I didn't expect. But things changed, slowly. Josh started staying up later and later. Mark works early, so he usually crashes around 10. I'm more of a night owl, and so is Josh. We started talking more, about dumb stuff at first, like movies and music and whatever gossip Josh had about his ex, but it didn't stay there. The conversations got deeper and longer, and that's where it starts to get blurry. Not inappropriate, not yet, just blurry. Because one night, about 3 weeks after Josh moved in, he said something I can't stop thinking about, something that didn't even seem like a big deal at the time. He said, "I wish I'd met someone like you instead." And I laughed. That's what you do when someone says something they shouldn't. You laugh it off. Pretend it's harmless. Pretend it didn't stick in your brain like a splinter. But it did. And now I can't help but feel like I've made a mistake I can't undo. After Josh said, "I wish I'd met someone like you," I told myself it was just a sad, broken guy venting after a breakup. People say stupid things when they're heartbroken. I told myself that 1,000 times in the days that followed. But something in the air changed. It was like a shift in temperature that no one else noticed. But I felt it. Suddenly, I was more aware of everything. The way Josh smiled at me. The way he lingered in the kitchen when I was cooking. The way he started complimenting my outfits, even the ones I wore to clean the house. Meanwhile, Mark was distant, not cold, not rude, just tired. Work had been insane. His company was dealing with budget cuts, layoffs, and extra hours. He was stretched thin. He'd come home, eat in silence, maybe watch half an episode of something, and fall asleep on the couch. Most nights, I'd wake him up and gently nudge him toward the bedroom while I cleaned up the kitchen. Josh was present, too present, always asking how I was doing, noticing little things, if I looked tired, if I skipped lunch, if I changed my shampoo. He'd bring me tea in the evenings, sit across from me, and just talk. There was one night in particular that still plays in my head like a loop. Mark had passed out early again, and Josh and I were sitting on the back porch. It was quiet, peaceful. One of those crisp autumn nights where the air smells like wood smoke and old leaves. I remember looking up at the stars and thinking, I haven't felt this calm in weeks. And then I looked over, and Josh was already staring at me. He didn't say anything, just smiled. And for one terrifying second, I felt something I wasn't supposed to feel. Not for him. I stood up immediately and said I was cold, went straight to bed, but I couldn't sleep, because I knew something had cracked open inside me, and I didn't know how to close it. Mark was snoring beside me, still in his work clothes, completely unaware of any of it, oblivious, or maybe just trusting me too much. The next morning, everything was normal again, or at least everyone acted like it was. But from that point on, I started noticing other things too, things I can't unsee, like how Josh always made sure to be shirtless when Mark wasn't home, how he'd walk around the house barefoot, all casual, all comfortable, like he belonged there more than Mark did. Like how one night I was folding laundry in the guest room, and Josh came up behind me, too close, and said, "You deserve better than someone who doesn't even notice when you're drowning." He said it like it was nothing, just a whisper, a seed, but it landed, and I haven't told Mark about any of it, because the truth is I don't know who I'm protecting anymore. After that night in the guest room, I started avoiding Josh. Not completely, just enough to create space, enough to feel like I had some control again. I stopped staying up late. I made excuses to go to bed early. I told Mark I wanted to spend more time with him, which was true, but it was also guilt. Except Mark didn't notice. Or if he did, he didn't say anything. He seemed grateful for the attention, but even then, he was only half there. Work was draining every ounce of energy from him. He was always tired, always buried in emails or calls. We hadn't been intimate in weeks, and when I brought it up, he said he just needed to get through this quarter. That once things calmed down, we'd plan a trip, reconnect. But I didn't want to wait for some future version of our marriage to show up. I wanted my husband back now, and in that vacuum, Josh filled the silence. One evening I came home from a rough day. My manager had chewed me out over something petty, and I was holding back tears the entire drive home. I was hoping Mark would be there, that he'd notice my mood and just be there for me, but he wasn't home yet. Josh was. He must have seen it on my face the moment I walked through the door, because he didn't say anything. He just opened his arms, and I broke. I didn't mean to. I swear, I didn't plan it. I was just so tired, so done pretending I was fine. I cried into his shirt like a broken child, and he held me. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't sexual, but it was emotional. And honestly, that scared me more than anything else, because when Mark came home 20 minutes later, I had already pulled myself together. Josh was back in his room, and I was in the kitchen reheating leftovers like nothing had happened, and I lied to Mark's face when he asked how my day was. I said it was fine. That was the first real lie, but it wasn't the last. A week later, I found out Josh never broke up with his ex. Not really. I was cleaning the hallway closet looking for batteries when I knocked over one of his bags. His phone had been charging nearby. A few seconds later, I saw a preview pop up. Can't believe you still haven't told her. Are you really living with your sister and her husband? That's effing weird, Josh. It was from her. The ex. Or maybe not so ex. I stared at that message for way too long. Something inside me snapped. I didn't confront him. Not then. I needed to think, process. I felt sick. Like I'd been tricked, pulled into some slow, emotional trap by someone who wasn't even being honest with me to begin with. And for the first time since this all began, I felt angry, not confused, not guilty, just furious. But I still didn't say anything, not to Josh, not to Mark, because part of me still needed to know what exactly was going on here, what was real, and who, if anyone, was playing me. The anger stayed with me. It didn't come in waves. It sat there like a heavy weight in my chest. I started watching Josh differently after I saw that message. Every word he said felt rehearsed. Every gesture suddenly seemed calculated. And the worst part? I couldn't tell if he was playing me or if I'd just let him get too close. I kept waiting for him to come clean, to say something, anything about that message, but he never did. Not even a hint. And honestly, that said more than the message itself. So I started pulling away completely. No more porch talk. No more late-night tea. No more folding his laundry because he forgot. I even told him flat out to start looking for a new place. I told him we'd help with the deposit if he needed it. But it was time. He nodded, didn't argue, said he understood. But something in his face, this cold flicker of resentment, made me uneasy. Mark, of course, was clueless. He was barely home anymore. His job was bleeding into every part of our lives. He came home exhausted, ate in silence, and passed out without ever asking how I was doing. If I told him we were living in a house made of fire, he'd probably just say, "We'll deal with it tomorrow." Then came the night that still keeps me up. It was a Friday. Mark had texted to say he'd be working late, again. He didn't even apologize this time. Just a quick, "running late, don't wait up." I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. I just felt numb. Around 11 p.m., I came downstairs to get some water. The house was quiet. I figured Josh had already gone to bed, but he hadn't. He was sitting on the living room floor, lights off, drinking straight from a bottle of wine I didn't even know we had. When he saw me, he smiled. Slow, sad, drunk. And then he said something that made my blood freeze. "If he won't touch you, someone else will." I stood there stunned. I couldn't move. I didn't know if he was joking, testing me, or dead serious. But before I could even respond, he stood up and walked toward me, slowly, like he was waiting for me to stop him. I didn't move. I didn't want to move. That's the part I hate the most. Because when he reached out and touched my face, I didn't flinch. When he leaned in, I didn't stop him right away. And yes, it happened. We kissed. It was messy and wrong and full of everything I'd been suppressing for weeks. And I pulled away just as fast as it started. I remember saying no, but my voice barely came out. I pushed him back and rushed upstairs, heart pounding so loud I thought I'd pass out. I locked the bedroom door and sat on the floor in silence for over an hour, shaking. He didn't try to follow me. He didn't knock. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened. And I didn't tell Mark, because how do you admit that part of you wanted it? That part of you let it happen? After that night, I couldn't look at Josh the same way. I barely saw him at all. He started disappearing for hours at a time, staying out late, sleeping in, only showing up in the kitchen like a shadow. We never talked about the kiss. Not once. It just hung there between us like a crack in the floor we both kept stepping around. Mark, as usual, noticed nothing. He'd started sleeping in the guest room, just for a few nights because of his back. Something about our mattress being too firm. That excuse lasted 2 weeks. He said it wasn't a big deal, that he was just more comfortable in the other bed. I didn't argue. What was I going to say? Actually, Mark, maybe sleep in your own bed before your brother-in-law takes your wife completely? It felt like our marriage was rotting in slow motion. I was carrying the weight of that kiss like a secret disease. And every time I looked at Mark, I felt sicker, because I still hadn't told him. I kept thinking I would. I told myself I was just waiting for the right moment, but there never was a right moment. Then, 2 Saturdays ago, things came to a head in a way I never saw coming. Mark had the day off. It was rare, and I tried to make the most of it. I cooked breakfast, played his favorite music, even wore the stupid hoodie he liked seeing me in. I wanted it to feel normal. I wanted us to feel normal. He barely looked at me. He scrolled through his phone at the table and muttered something about work stress. I laughed it off and asked if we could maybe plan a weekend away. Just the 2 of us. Some space to breathe. That's when he hit me with it. You think that's gonna fix this? I asked him what he meant, and he said, so calmly I thought I misheard him, I know something's going on with you and Josh. My heart stopped. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just said it, like a fact. Then he got up and walked out of the kitchen, like we'd just finished talking about the weather. I didn't follow him. I couldn't. My legs wouldn't move. Later that night, I tried to ask him what he meant, how he knew, but he didn't want to talk. He said it didn't matter anymore, that he wasn't angry, just done. The next morning, Josh was gone. No warning, no note, just gone. His room cleared out, bed stripped, key left on the counter. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. Texted him. Nothing. It was like he vanished. Mark didn't ask where he went. He didn't seem surprised. And me? I just stood in the empty guest room, trying to remember when everything started slipping, wondering if this was always going to be the end, or if I had broken it myself, piece by piece. 3 days passed after Josh left. The house felt colder without him, but not in a way I missed. It was just empty, like something unspoken had been ripped out of the walls, and no one wanted to admit it was ever there in the first place. Mark barely looked at me. We moved around each other like ghosts, quiet, polite, avoiding eye contact. No fights, no yelling, just silence. I thought maybe this was it, that we were headed towards some slow, silent separation neither of us had the energy to fight. I still didn't know how much Mark actually knew, or if he saw something, or if he just felt it, the same way I did before anything ever happened. Then the truth came to me in the ugliest way. It was a Wednesday morning. I was home alone, working on my laptop, when my phone buzzed. The number wasn't saved in my contacts, but the area code was familiar. I almost ignored it. Then I saw the preview. I thought you should know what your brother-in-law's been saying. There was a photo attached. I opened it. It was a screenshot, an Instagram. The sender was Josh, and the person he sent it to? My best friend, Sarah. It was from 3 weeks ago, right around the time things between Josh and me started to feel blurry. The message said, I think she's catching feelings. If I pushed just a little more, I don't think she'd stop me. My blood ran cold. Sarah had forwarded the whole thread. Apparently, Josh had been messaging her behind my back since he moved in, complaining about me, flirting with her, bragging, testing the waters, and the worst part? He told her about the kiss. Not everything, just enough. Enough to make it clear it wasn't just some one-sided mistake. Enough to make it clear that he knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted more. I don't remember how long I sat there staring at the screen. Maybe 10 minutes? Maybe an hour? Eventually, I got up and found Mark in the garage. He was fixing something. Pretending, probably. I didn't even say his name. I just held out my phone and let him read it. He looked at it for maybe 5 seconds, then nodded. That's how I knew. I asked him if Sarah had told him. He shook his head. He did. The night it happened. Apparently, Josh had gotten drunk after I ran upstairs and left the house in the middle of the night. He showed up at Mark's office. Just walked in, sat down, and told him everything. Said it wasn't technically cheating. Said it was a moment, but that I wanted it. That I wanted him. I don't remember much after that. I think I just walked away. Because how do you respond to something like that? How do you fix something when you're the one who broke it? After I found out Josh had gone to Mark the night it happened, told him everything, I didn't feel betrayed. I felt exposed. I thought I was holding a secret. I thought I was keeping it together. But the truth had already been pulled out from under me like a rug. and I'd been standing on nothing. I spent the next few days in a kind of emotional fog. I didn't eat much, didn't sleep. I kept going over that night, trying to find the exact second where I could have stopped it, wondering how someone I once tucked into bunk beds and babysat through chickenpox had grown into this version of himself. A man who could hurt people just to feel powerful, because that's what he did. He hurt both of us, but I let him. I let him come into my marriage and find the cracks, and then I widened them. A week later, I came home to find Mark packing a bag. He didn't say much, just that he needed time away to think. No yelling, no tears. He just looked finished, like he'd waited long enough for me to take responsibility, and now he didn't want to wait anymore. I asked if he was done with us. He said he didn't know. That was worse than a no. I let him go. That night, I sat alone in the living room, same place where the kiss happened. I stared at the couch like it was a crime scene, because, in a way, it was. Not just the kiss, but all the silences, all the choices I made to protect a feeling instead of a person. I thought about how I never really invited Josh in, but I didn't shut the door either. The next day, Josh showed up at my front door. I hadn't seen or heard from him since he left. He looked different, hollow, like even he didn't like the man he'd turned into. He said he was sorry, not just for the kiss, or for what he told Mark, but for coming into our home and treating it like a game. He said he didn't know why he did it, that maybe part of him just hated seeing something he never had. A real relationship, a real life. I let him talk, and then I told him to leave. Not because I hated him, but because I finally understood the damage we'd done, not just to Mark, to ourselves, and I didn't want to be the kind of person who let things slide anymore. It's been 2 months now. Mark hasn't come back. He sends short texts every now and then, asking if I'm okay, letting me know he is. We haven't talked about what happens next. I don't push. I'm still in therapy, trying to understand how I let myself fall asleep in my own life. Josh moved back to our hometown. Last I heard, he's in therapy too. I haven't seen him. I don't know if I want to. There's no satisfying ending to this. No big blow-up. No revenge. Just distance. Just silence. Just me, rebuilding. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the worst part of ruining something isn't the destruction. It's realizing you don't get to choose what survives it, but you do get to choose who you become next. And I'm working on her. Every day. After I found out Josh had gone to Mark the night it happened, told him everything, I didn't feel betrayed. I felt exposed. I thought I was holding a secret. I thought I was keeping it together. But the truth had already been pulled out from under me like a rug, and I'd been standing on nothing. I spent the next few days in a kind of emotional fog. I didn't eat much, didn't sleep. I kept going over that night, trying to find the exact second where I could have stopped it, wondering how someone I once tucked into bunk beds and babysat through chickenpox had grown into this version of himself, a man who could hurt people just to feel powerful, because that's what he did. He hurt both of us, but I let him. I let him come into my marriage and find the cracks, and then I widened them. A week later, I came home to find Mark packing a bag. He didn't say much, just that he needed time away to think. No yelling, no tears. He just looked finished, like he'd waited long enough for me to take responsibility, and now he didn't want to wait anymore. I asked if he was done with us. He said he didn't know. That was worse than a no. I let him go. That night, I sat alone in the living room, same place where the kiss happened. I stared at the couch like it was a crime scene, because in a way, it was. Not just the kiss, but all the silences, all the choices I made to protect a feeling instead of a person. I thought about how I never really invited Josh in, but I didn't shut the door either. The next day, Josh showed up at my front door. I hadn't seen or heard from him since he left. He looked different, hollow, like even he didn't like the man he'd turned into. He said he was sorry, not just for the kiss or for what he told Mark, but for coming into our home and treating it like a game. He said he didn't know why he did it, that maybe part of him just hated seeing something he never had. A real relationship, a real life. I let him talk, and then I told him to leave. Not because I hated him, but because I finally understood the damage we'd done. Not just to Mark, to ourselves. And I didn't want to be the kind of person who let things slide anymore. It's been 2 months now. Mark hasn't come back. He sends short texts every now and then, asking if I'm okay, letting me know he is. We haven't talked about what happens next. I don't push. I'm still in therapy, trying to understand how I let myself fall asleep in my own life. Josh moved back to our hometown. Last I heard, he's in therapy too. I haven't seen him. I don't know if I want to. There's no satisfying ending to this. No big blow-up. No revenge. Just distance. Just silence. Just me, rebuilding, and maybe that's enough. Maybe the worst part of ruining something isn't the destruction. It's realizing you don't get to choose what survives it, but you do get to choose who you become next. And I'm working on her every day.